Governor Walz, there were millions of Americans and Minnesotans certainly watching on their TV screens as this unfolded last night. There was almost a complete lack of visibility of local police, state police, National Guard. After much fanfare about how the National Guard was coming in, people watched buildings burn, public and private. How could there not have been a clear mission for the National Guard when they were called in and you knew things were going to happen last night?
Yeah, I will let my leadership come back up there. You're absolutely right, and I think that speaks to itself that by shortly after 10 o'clock, it became apparent that that structure would go. The way this works is the mayors ask and they take charge and lead on the missions. I'll let the folks come up here said, I see that too. I think the decision made to not engage. And I want to just be clear, there's philosophically an argument to be made that an armed presence on the ground in the midst of where we just had a police killing is seen as a catalyst. My point to that is we don't need a catalyst, it's already burning. And so this is trying to strike that balance. And so I am in total agreement with that. You will not see that tonight. There will be no lack of leadership, and there will be no lack of response on the table.
As a follow-up, should there have been a National Guard presence on every corner in those areas last night as a deterrent, as opposed to having them come in
I'll answer this one, potentially, but the decision on that, as it's made from the city, and on this one, I think I would agree with them. We saw the first night, decisions were made. Up until about 8:30 last evening, it appeared that things were relatively peaceful on that. There was a decision during the day whether did you occupy the entire city and shut it down after those 24 hours. In retrospect, I'm assuming that yes, we would say that. But at the time, and again, we will not know it as proving the negative, would it have simply started those that movement faster, and would we have seen it moved out of the 3rd precinct? But yes, certainly, it's a valid critique and point. Yes.
Governor, you know, there was uncontrolled looting in St. Paul yesterday afternoon, and you're talking about making decisions at 10 o'clock. Why are you making the decisions then and not coming up with these scenarios as these things are happening just up the street from where
the leadership of communities is led by local leadership, their police force. They were at that time, had sources in reserve, they were not being requested. They were not being requested, and I'm on with them. The reason we're standing here today is, if this would have been executed correctly, the state would not lead on this. The state would have supported those, and they would have moved forward. That did not happen. So now today, we're taking that, we're making the decision to go and moving forward. And again, I would go back to Tom's question. Had I known that we were not going to see that or the capability to do it, should the state have come in? Potentially, but I want to be very clear. This, with the exception of the state troopers who have a very specific statutory requirement on the highways, order is to the local police and sheriffs. We do not have a built-in police force. General Jensen is not a police force. DPS has experts in there, but these are not the police force that are on their streets with their people. And so that's a decision that was made. It was in reserve, and yes, keeping in mind as this unfolded, the request came from St. Paul for the Guard to be activated at 5. I had moved on a warning order earlier than that to be prepared. You're really supposed to wait until you get that and start moving them in. That wasn't going to be possible. So by 5 o'clock yesterday, our Guard troops were coming from all over. They were getting activated because of the events that happened the night before, and we were prepared to carry out those missions. And they were there. And as you heard some of these folks, those missions never came.